Okay, so these are my answers for the mental health unit for instructional management. For the first question, why is it inappropriate to ask for a doctor's note for a student to come back and saying that they're safe to return? That's really inappropriate because that's giving a student a label. There's good intentions behind it, but it really just gives a student a label saying that they're dangerous and someone we need to watch out for when we don't know the full story. And that's not fair for that student because, like in the story that was read for that voice thread, he didn't want to hurt his teacher. He just drew it. He never meant to hurt his teacher. So we don't know the full story, and that's why it's inappropriate to ask for a safe to return letter from a doctor. For question number 2, how to deal with Tommy coming back after his hospitalization after the attempted suicide, I would address some of the issues that Tommy brought up, saying that he's a bad student, and that he's a loser, and that he has no friends. One of the first things I would do is, if Tommy by chance was doing something that was not appropriate for the class, I would say, Tommy, you're not making a good choice. How about I give you an option to make a better choice next time? So that way he feels like he can improve from that and doesn't feel like, oh, I'm just a bad student because I made this bad choice today. Or just flat out telling him that, no, that's bad. Give him a reason why and give him options for improvement because he's still learning how to handle behaviors and so on and so forth. The second thing with him not having friends and saying he's a loser, I would involved in some way a buddy program where I would pick a student I know who would do well and is kind and respectful and pair him up with Tommy just to maybe have lunch together or do a few projects together or work together on something. So Tommy feels like he has someone to talk to and hopefully develop a friendship out of that. Or even offer to have lunch with Tommy, say, I'm free during lunch period. Do you want to swing by and have lunch with me? Do you want me to come into the lunchroom and have lunch with you? So he feels like he's not alone and that he has someone to fall back on if he does have those thoughts again. So those were just a few ideas I have off while I'm recording this. The third question, the article, I did the anxiety one in students. I chose that one because I know that anxiety in schools is raising. There's more and more students are developing anxiety, and I just kind of wanted to read up on that because sometimes I have some anxieties myself, and so that was really cool for me to read about anxieties and how, like, now as a teacher, how can I help relieve some of those anxieties. And even from this, I was able to pull some stuff and say, oh, maybe I can do this to help relieve some of the anxiety that I have in my own personal life, which I thought was really cool, and it was very helpful. And then finally for the last question, from the information that I got from the slides, one thing that stuck out for me and it was interesting was the eating disorders, because I had heard of them, but I could never really tell the difference from the three. And it was really cool to read up on that, because that's also something that's been popping up more and more. I believe in schools it's just not as well broadcast, I believe, in my opinion. And then the 5 examples that this will help me with classroom management. The first thing that I thought of was this just helps us identify some issues that could be arising, and Billy decides to, run out of the room unexpectedly, and Billy hasn't done that before. That might answer a few of those questions of like, okay, Billy hasn't done this before. What's going on? Is there something going on? And this kind of helps us answer some of those questions, because it's definitely a possibility for these students. The second one that I had was this can help us create a plan. Getting all this information from the anxiety one, it offers suggestions of what to do to help alleviate some anxiety, having steps to take, like take a deep breath, or go into like an area and sit down, get your mind clear, and then jump back in. So that helps us put a plan in place. Or if we have a student who just gets up and is like, and throws a tantrum, then we have a plan in place in order to handle that more efficiently than just assuming this child's doing it just because. The third example that I have is that it gives us more options to consider. It's so hard for us teachers to keep everything in our heads of what could be going on, and this just adds more, but it's good because then we know, and if we see those symptoms, we can say, oh yeah, I think he's displaying PTSD, and I know Billy Bob had a very traumatic year last year, so maybe he's suffering from that, and that can just help us better help the student, knowing that there's more options than he's just being bad. And then finally, my last one, or two more. My second to last one is, like I said before, it will help us, it prepares us to handle the crisis when it occurs, so we know what is to be expected from the mental illness or issue at hand, so we know what could trigger it and how we as teachers can prevent that in the classroom, and how we can integrate our plan more efficiently. And then finally, the last one is it just helps you stop, and I believe this helps us stop and think. Because your first reaction when you have a behavior, especially one where it's just rude, is to like nip at that child and say stop. Like, you're being disrespectful. But it kind of gets you to stop and think for a second, why is this child doing this? There's got to be a reason. My mentor teacher always said that a child never wants to be bad. A child's never bad. They just don't understand. And that really has stuck with me, because I find it sometimes hard to think that, but knowing that a child just wants to do what they can to make you and their parents proud. And so realizing that there is an actual cause to the behavior helps us stop and think, why are they doing this? So those are the answers that I had for the questions. So have a good night.